he talks about how he was over, I don't know how many Satanists, call them churches. He was like the bishop.
You gotta be kidding me.
What was in her heart? You don't know what sin she'd committed. You don't know how much unbelief was there. You don't know whether she hated her husband.
I don't think so.
Why would anybody spend so much time ranting and raving about something that they don't believe in?
Really?
Welcome to Skeptics Brew Pub with Brother Brewer. Hey guys, I just wanted to jump on real quick before I get started in the interview with Chris Johnson to first of all apologize. I want to thank you guys that have been listening for the last 50 episodes. I know that I had a couple of weeks here where I was not on, and I do apologize again. Unfortunately, I came down with, it wasn't a sinus infection, but my sinuses were plugged up enough that it was hurting my ears and I could barely hear out of one ear, and my voice was pretty hosed up. So I didn't want to come on and be, sound like a wreck, basically, first of all. And secondly, in the last couple of weeks, my dad was in the hospital. He's fine now. But he had to have some angioplasty done on one of the arteries in his heart that he previously had a bypass on. So that he had a double bypass a couple of years ago, and apparently within those 2 years he had already developed enough of a 90% blockage in the artery the bypass to that artery. So, and he's going to be turning 70 this year, so it was kind of a scary thing for me. So I was kind of worried about him too, and I really was afraid that I wouldn't be able to put out a good quality episode. So that's the first thing I wanted to address. The second thing, you're going to notice on here that my audio quality is not that great. My voice sounds really high-pitched, and that's because I had been playing with the mixer on some equalization settings trying to get a better sound, and unfortunately I left it in the wrong spot. So my voice is going to sound a little bit hotter than normal too. It should still be a good episode and everything. I just wanted to apologize ahead of time, both for the audio quality and for neglecting you guys for so long, because you make it worthwhile for me. I don't do this just to hear myself roar. Well, kind of do, but also because I hope that it helps with other people. So in any case, I just wanted to go ahead and say that, and without further ado, bring in the interview with Chris Johnson. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the other side. Okay, there we go. We're recording. And welcome to episode 50 of Skeptics Brew Pub. I'm Brother Brewer, and I've finally been able to sit down and get through all of the colds and everything else going on and talk with Chris Johnson, who is both an author, filmmaker, podcaster. Is there anything you don't do?
Stay in one place, apparently.
Oh, that's right. You're on a book tour right now, aren't you? Or a movie tour right now?
Yeah. I'm actually home right now, so it's a rare time where I'm home for a little bit. But most of the time, I'm on the road nowadays. Okay.
Where are some of the places that? Well, of course, we're talking about your book. Let's see, it's A Better Life, and also the movie of the same name. What are some of the places that you're going to be coming up in the next few weeks or in the next few months?
Oh, well, I'm doing a summer tour in June and July, starting off in Nashville, then going up to Rice Lake, Wisconsin, Memphis, Pensacola, Buffalo, North Carolina, over to San Jose, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, Boise, Reno, all over the place.
Oh, wow. Are you going to be anywhere near over here in Walmart Mecca, or is this kind of this part of the Bible Belt kind of off limits?
Where in the Bible Belt are you? I don't even remember.
Well, I'm actually in Northwest Arkansas. I call it Walmart Mecca because this is where Walmart's home office is located, and everybody that sells through Walmart has to have an office within spitting distance of the home office. So basically, if you want to sell through Walmart, you have to make a pilgrimage to Walmart Mecca here.
Interesting. No, I didn't know that. I have not been to Arkansas yet to do a screening. I think it's one of the few states I've not done one in or have scheduled one in yet. So let your local atheist group, humanist group, UU church, whatever, know that this would be something you'd be interested in having, because I'd love to come to Arkansas.
Oh, definitely. I've got, I think there are at the moment 4 active secular groups here in Northwest Arkansas, so I can definitely probably talk 1 or 2 of them into it.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to come out.
Now, what was the well? First of all, how did you get started with the author and filmmaking? I mean, did you go to school for this, or is it just something you just decided off the cuff just to see if you could do it? How did it get started?
Well, I really love this project because it's really encompassed all of my education. Because when I was in college, my major was film production, and my minor was religious studies. So this kind of puts those two things together in a way I never really thought that I'd end up doing. So it's great to be able to do that. I was a freelance photographer for a while before I started working on the book itself, but it was the first book I ever came out with and the first feature-length film I've ever done. So it's a first for me in many ways, but it also kind of stays true to some of the roots that I've laid for a long time now.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Now, you said that you were minoring in religious studies. So were you religious before, or have you always been more secular-minded, or...
Yeah, so I was raised in a very secular environment. My dad is a very liberal Christian, but my brother and I were raised pretty much without any religious indoctrination or ideology. We knew about different religions. We knew about Christianity a little bit more probably, but we weren't raised religious at all. My parents raised us in a very free-thinking kind of manner. It was the 80s, you know. It was, and I was raised in Seattle, so a very liberal city, surrounded by liberal people. So it wasn't really till I got into high school and college that I started wondering, how do I fit into this religious kind of diversity, and how do I fit into that? And so when I went to college, I started thinking to myself, like, well, what do I believe, and what do other people believe? So I started taking courses in the religious studies department, took more and more of them, found them very interesting, even though I didn't believe in God or believe any religious ideology. I found it interesting learning about what other people did. And so that also coincided with kind of the rise of the New Atheist movement. So when I was in college around 2004, 2005, when End of Faith, Letter to a Christian Nation, The God Delusion, all these books started coming out. And it also got me thinking about, okay, well, I guess how do I identify, you know? And it really started using the label atheist a lot more after that. But I've always been interested in these topics. Okay.
Now, what was the inspiration for A Better Life? I mean, because it seems like it's a real positive message that you're giving out there, and in a lot of ways. Am I wrong in thinking that you were trying to counter some of the stereotype of the angry or sad atheist that just is always dour and all the time? Or was that what you were going for?
Yeah, definitely to counter those stereotypes, and also add to the conversation. People, I guess, think of me as being the opposite of a firebrand. I was just down in Austin a few days ago, spending time with my friend Matt Dillahunty, and it was interesting that people have said to me that they're surprised that he and I get along so well, and for a while I didn't quite know what to make of that, because I thought, well, obviously Matt and I get along. He's a great guy. Why would we not? But people tend to think that I'm the opposite of the firebrand, and I'm not. I think that the firebrand approach is a very much needed approach in our community. But I also think, in addition to that, we need some compassion and some understanding, and also some positive viewpoints about how we see the world, showing people how we see the world, because it's important that we counter harmful religious ideologies, but it's also important that we stand up and say, this is how we see the world. If all we do is combat the harmful religious ideologies, people are going to think that when they leave religion, they're just stepping off into a void, and we don't want that. So in addition to debating, in addition to pointing out flaws in religion, it's important that at the same time we also show how we see the world, and combat some of those stereotypes that people have about us, that we're mean-spirited, or we're sad, and things like that. So it's important that we do both of these things all at once. So I'm just providing a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important piece too, because a lot of the more famous atheists that you see and hear about, like you hear about Richard Dawkins, of course, the late Christopher Hitchens, Saint Hitch, and like David Silverman from American Atheist, and these guys that they come off really. I'm sure they're great guys in person, but when you hear them in their speeches and stuff, they're very acerbic kind of in their approach, and in some ways almost condescending sometimes. So I think it's important that we also show this other side, that it's not all sitting around complaining about what God didn't do today. That we've got other things that we're doing too.
Yeah. And it's important that as well we talk about the big issues that religions often talk about, death and morality, and living a good life, and how to spend the precious time that we have together. We need to talk about those topics, because we might not like what the religious side has to say about those topics, but at least they're giving answers, right? So we need to also address these questions and topics, and have honest conversations about what it means to live a good life, what it means to experience the world for all that you can get out of it, and all the joy and all the meaning that we can get out of the precious amount of time that we have together.
Right. Now, what was it like talking with some of these people? Because I know that in your book, in the movie, you've got quite a few folks like Julia Sweeney and such, but in the book also you're talking to people like Dawkins, and Lawrence Krauss, I think, is in the book as well. How did you go about approaching these people? Because I mean, it's not like we all hang out in the same club and you just kind of walk up and say, "How are you doing?" So how did that come about, that you were able to get all of these great personalities to sit down and talk with you for this?
I think never underestimate the power of a good idea and a different idea. I think for me, at least, I get that question quite a bit, and I'm nobody special. Especially when I started doing this project, I was a nobody. I had no serious credentials in the atheist community at all. I wasn't involved. I wasn't doing anything. I was just some guy. But I felt this was something that needed to be done, and these were stories that needed to be told, and this was a way we needed to do it. And so I just emailed them. And I said, I have this idea. This is what I want to do. Would you want to be a part of it? And to my surprise, so many people who I looked up to and admired and thought were really amazing, incredible people in the movement said, yes, this is something I've never seen before. So if you have a good idea, if you have something that's new and different, you can really make some headway where, you don't think you normally would.
Okay, yeah. Now, what was it? I have to ask this because I'm kind of fanboying on this here, but what was it like to sit down and talk to Julia Sweeney? I mean, is she every bit as sweet as she comes across in a lot of her other stuff, like in her talks and stuff? Is she really that sweet?
Yeah, she is. She's wonderful. She's really great, and she's one of those people who is exactly like you think she would be. There's no kind of pretentiousness or star quality in kind of the negative way about her at all. I mean, she's really such a genuine person, and some of the parts towards the end of the film where she's talking about death and dying and some of that stuff in the film in particular is just, for me, some of the most moving parts of my conversation with her. She's wonderful.
Yeah, I think I really love that, and it's that's one of the things I think that religion does a really good job of, at least on the surface, of giving people an idea of that death isn't the end, and we don't have to worry about we've got this next life we're going to kind of idea, and it's hard to sell this that, well, this is all we've got. If once you're gone, you're gone. And so I think it's important.
It is, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because I think it's important to really address those and have people realize that just because something is finite doesn't make it less valuable. It makes it more valuable, so that we don't have to focus on, well, number one, we don't have to worry about, well, did we do everything right so that we can get the kudos in the afterlife or whatever, but we don't also have to worry about, a do-over, basically. It's, this is what we've got. We make the most of it, and that's what makes it so special.
Right. Right. And how many people on a roller coaster are sitting on the roller coaster sad that the roller coaster is not going to last forever? They're not, right? They're excited that they're on this roller coaster for 3 or 4 minutes, however long it is. And it's an exciting thing. And just because the roller coaster doesn't last forever doesn't mean that your trip on the roller coaster is meaningless or pointless.
Right. Now,
and I don't even like roller coasters, so there you go.
Oh, I love I love a good roller coaster. Those are some of the best rides. My wife hates them though. She just whenever we go, she stays. She's been staying with the kids, but now that the kids are old enough that they like the roller coasters too.
Yeah. I can see that.
Now, how long did it take for you to put the film together? I mean, was it? Did it take several months, or was it something that you were able to take a month or two off to just do in one shot? How did you go about actually some of the logistics wise? How it came about?
So I shot the majority of the film at the same time that I was doing the interviews for the book. So the book took about 1.5 years to do all the interviews and compile the book and put all that together. So that was 1.5 years. The film editing, post-production work, some additional reshooting took another 9 months after that. So it was over if you add it all up, it was over 2 years of putting everything together. But and then the tour has been going on for 2 years now. So it's been 4 years of doing this, 4 years of my life, which has been an incredible journey doing this, talking about these issues for this whole thing.
Yeah, and it's really been it's at least for me, I thought it was a very uplifting movie too. Another thing I wanted to ask you about was the location, the White Sands that you were walking across the sand dunes. Where was that shot at?
That's White Sands National Monument in New Mexico. So if anybody's ever going on a road trip through New Mexico, check it out because it's incredible.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and a lot of it was reminding me because I spent the very first part of my life in the western Gulf Coast of Florida, and the white sands that I was seeing there reminded me a lot of the white beaches right there on the Florida coast. So I was like, wow, that is some that must be nice. He's on the beach.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like that without the water, basically. Yeah, it's in the middle of the desert. It's an incredible spot, though.
Okay. Now, other things with the book. When you were putting it together, did you already have the entire theme set for you, or was it more that it evolved as you were moving along with it, that the focus kind of changed with it, or how did that process go?
Well, I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to handle issues of joy and meaning and purpose. So that was going to be the angle for the book. Who exactly was going to be in it, and how what it was going to look like, and what exactly it was going to be, changed over time and evolved. But in terms of the theme, I mean, that's another reason why I wanted to do that, was because, again, it's a positive project. I mean, so many of our books in the atheist community are argumentative books, and it's important. I'm not trying to say we don't need argumentative books, because we definitely do. We need to talk about why religion is harmful, why religion is wrong, all these things, debate these harmful religious ideologies. But at the same time, a positive project was something new and different that hadn't been done before, especially something that wasn't simply an intellectual book, and instead was a coffee table photography book. You can just sit on your coffee table and just flip through and look at pictures of happy, smiling people from all over the world talking about these important topics. So that's kind of where I was going with that.
Okay. Now, most of the shots that were done, did you do all of it in the States, or did you have to travel overseas for some of it? Did you do it all in Canada? Where were a lot of these other interviews shot at?
The majority of them were done in the United States, just because it's a lot more expensive to travel other places. Although I did also go to some places in Europe as well, and Canada also, but mostly in the United States, the UK, and Canada to do these interviews. It's interesting, though, because as I've done the film tour, screening the film, I initially thought to myself, okay, I'll do 6 of the lecture screening events and then go do something else with my life. And 2 years later, I've now done 96 cities on 5 continents. So, in fact, the film tour has kind of grown to be much larger than the actual film itself, in a good way. So, it's been surprising for sure.
Now, have you thought about actually doing kind of like a film that of the people, the reactions that you get from seeing the movie, like kind of how it affects the man and woman on the street, kind of a thing? Is that something that you maybe were thinking about in the future, or is this going to be the only project you do?
There's definitely more to come. What that exactly is going to be, I don't know yet. Again, what I've been trying to do with this project is do something new and different, and not just do something that everybody else is doing. So it's a tough act to follow, because I definitely want to continue, but what that's going to be, I don't exactly know. But I want it to do whatever I do next. I want to do for the right reasons. Right. So I want to do it because it's needed, because it's important, and not just because it's something I could do or it's something that everybody else is doing. Like I do a podcast, right? So I do a podcast twice a month, re-interviewing people that I met for the book and the film, and also interviewing people I've met since doing the book and the film that interesting stories to tell. I just interviewed.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you.
Yeah, I just interviewed Cara San Maria yesterday for the podcast, who's in the book and the film, and for a while I was very hesitant about starting a podcast, because I thought, oh, everybody does a podcast, why should I do a podcast? And it wasn't until I started meeting all of these new people I thought, oh, this is a way I can incorporate them into the project in a new and exciting way, and also, talk to people that people already met in the book and the film, and kind of reconnect and talk about what they've done since doing that project. So there's more I want to do, but I want to definitely do it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about podcasting, at least in the little bit that I've done in my show, is getting to talk to people and get their stories, because for me that's more important to me than doing a whole Firebrand thing, is to get that human connection, because I think it's something that's kind of lacking too, at least in the way that we present atheism and skepticism to the world. But it also is a tactic that worked very well in the LGBT community. That they didn't start really changing hearts and minds until it started becoming their neighbor, their brother, their sister, their parents that they had a connection with. And so I think work like what you're doing with your podcast and the movie and the book, of getting that human connection and telling their stories, is very important in helping us become more accepted. Because right now we're just below, I think we're just below Muslims, and just above Muslims, and just below rapists as far as public opinion of atheists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty bad. That's, again, why I did the film and the book in the first place, was because those stereotypes are so negative. But like you said, I love storytelling. I love the idea of taking snapshots of people's lives and talking to them about these important things. And the podcast thing, too, I love, because and it surprised me, actually. This is one thing that surprised me about starting a podcast, was I loved the informality of it, and I love the conversational aspect to it. Making a feature-length documentary, you have to be very precise in your edits. You have to take something and make it look slick and cut certain pieces. And but with a podcast, one thing I love about it is that it is just a conversation, and you can go on for an hour and it doesn't seem like it's boring people. People really like that, and they love engaging conversations about topics that matter to them. So that really surprised me.
Yeah, that's kind of why that's part of why I started myself and why I keep doing it, is because meeting people like you and some of the other personalities that I've met over the last year, it's really, for me, it's been really exciting and really broadened my own horizons. And I hope at least some of the messages that I've gotten here recently, that other people are hearing what we put out and realizing that they're not alone, and that it's okay to have lost your faith or to have never had faith in the first place, but especially for people that, are coming out of religion, to know that they're not alone, that there's nothing wrong with them, and that there are other people that feel the same way. That's, it's something that we do that I think is also very important.
Yeah. And that's the amazing thing for me, too, is not only doing the screening tour, but going to places and getting feedback from people after seeing the movie or reading through the book that, what I'm doing has an impact on them personally, how they see the world, how their friends see them, how their family sees them, how they see other people. I mean, it's amazing, especially as an artist, to create something and then kind of feedback, because normally you just kind of put things out into the world and you never hear about it again. But to do something like this, where not only do I get emails later on, but I get face-to-face interactions with people right after seeing the film. When we do a lecture screening event, I talk before the film, we show the film, and I do Q&A after, and just to get that instant response from people is really incredible. I just mentioned I was down in Austin this weekend, and I did a talk at the Austin Oasis group. It's like the Sunday Assembly or Kansas City Oasis, one of these kind of church for atheists in quotation fingers. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing because, here I am, I'm doing this lecture about the work, I'm talking about these topics, and I can look into the audience and see people crying. And, that's amazing to be able to know that what you're doing is having an impact, an emotional impact right there and then. And so the more I can do of that, not the more I can make people cry, but, for good reasons, better. So hopefully not just me, but others can continue doing this kind of work and, making a difference on the emotional side, because we've got the intellectual side pretty well covered. But we really need to hit more on the emotional side of our arguments and our conversations, because that's going to be really important.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important for us to understand, that we do have to have something for people to fall back on if they're not, getting, because there are some great things to religion. I know I kind of waver back and forth between being anti-theist, I guess is the term that you would use for it, and just being, live and let live kind of mentality. I guess it kind of depends on what news story I ever heard that morning. But, it does give people something, at least as far as not just the hope aspect, but also the community. And I think that things like the Oasis that you were talking about and some of the meetup groups that you get with the local secular communities are very important too, because it fills that social void that a lot of people that coming out of religion kind of miss a lot of times, because they don't have that social safety net. I think Matt Dillahunty talked about that in the movie, where when he was a Southern Baptist, he could go to another town and, well, what church do you go to? Well, I go, I'm new here, I'm a Southern Baptist. Well, you can come down to our church and check it out. You've already got a community. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I've noticed that we don't have much of anything except like the Oasis and such, and the local meetup groups, to kind of fill that void. So a lot of times you feel like you're on your own.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, sometimes you feel alone, like you're on your own.
Yeah. And I think that's why some of these groups are really taking off. So, we went to Kansas City and their Oasis group. They had like 200 people who show up every week. It's amazing. So these communities are growing, and you mentioned meetup. These meetups are getting stronger and stronger and bigger and bigger. I think we're really starting to embrace as a community the community aspects of what it is to be a community, right? To be a movement. And that's great to be able to see that progress just in the past 2 or 3 years. That's really taking off. There's so many more groups around the world starting and doing these things. So hopefully we'll see more of that as we move along.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. And I think another thing that a lot of people are saying is kind of a weakness of the group, right, of the atheist movement right now, but in one way I kind of see it as a strength, is the way that it's starting to kind of splinter off a little bit. You've got it's almost like we're starting to create denominations in the same way that Christianity did. That we're breaking off, but that means that we're not having to be such an isolated group anymore. We have the luxury of being able to branch off. So in a way, I think that the divisions and such are healthy, and they're a way that it's showing that we are a vibrant movement and that we are probably here to stay, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It's also important, I think, that people take some responsibility, too, when it comes to the movement and the community. Because if you're a non-believer who can be out, I think you have a responsibility to be out about it. I think that if you are somebody in a position that can afford to, say, give money to organizations who are helping the movement, helping the cause, you should do that. The only way we're going to grow as a community is through representation in terms of numbers of people and also monetary contributions to large organizations like FFRF, one of my favorite organizations. Donate to them if you can. Support artists like myself as well. We have things like Patreon now and Kickstarters and ways that, we can do our work. Because people like me can only do work if we get support to do it. And so while it's great that people kind of are forming their own communities, it's important that we support those communities as well. So we need to make sure that groups like Oasis and the Assembly get the funding they need, groups like FFRF get the funding they need, and also artists like myself and people who are doing all this work also get supported as well. So the splintering can be good, but also it's important that people take responsibility as well for being a part of the movement, both in terms of kind of being physical numbers, but also just supporting it if they can.
Right, and also I think that it's also important that we not just focus on atheism or skepticism or secularism, but we need to also focus on where these things intersect, the humanist aspect of it, and getting involved not just in things like FFRF, but also trying to get involved with things like helping out with the LGBT community, with Black Lives Matter, and things like that are going to be, that help raise all boats. Because I've noticed, at least when I was a Christian, and I was a liberal Christian before I finally left, that they had their fingers in a lot of those pies, and they had representation in the LGBT community. They were very active within their community, within these other movements, and I think that's something that a lot of us are starting to get more involved in. But I think that intersection is also important too. That we not just say, "Hey, we're atheists and we're here," and get used to it, but hey, we want to help you too. I think we can work together.
Yeah, I had a great conversation the other day with my friend Evan Clark, who runs the Humanist Experience podcast, and he's the co-host on there. He's a wonderful guy, and we had a really great conversation, and he said something that really resonated with me, which is, people often think of using the label humanist as kind of a nicer way of saying atheist, but as he pointed out, humanism, when you really look at it and look at what it means to be a humanist and what it means to embrace humanist values, you're going to end up with some pretty radical positions, even for people on the left. It's going to make you think about, well, how do I think then about issues of gender? How do I think about issues of monogamy? How do I think of issues of marriage? How do I think issues of race? It's not just a nice way of saying you're an atheist. It actually has some consequences to it logically, and some pretty serious ways of kind of reflecting and thinking about the world and how we treat each other. And so it's not just, saying, oh, I don't want to say atheist because it doesn't sound as nice. It's important that if we're going to, embrace humanism, that we really look at what that means and that we really fully go there and say, if you're going to say you're a humanist, this is what you're signing up for. And that, it means that we need to take issues on that we might not be always comfortable with. It means that we should say things like, issues of economics, issues of gun control, things like that. Like, we should look at these and think, well, from a humanist perspective, how do we want to think about these? And that's important. So it's not simply just being a nice way of being an atheist, but it has some implications as well about the more taboo topics that we're going to talk about.
Right. Yeah. I like to define humanism, at least when someone asks me what that means, is that I believe in the human potential and want to help work to make us the best that we can be. That involves more than just, that involves more than just me being a secularist, but also understanding that there are other people in the world and that they need the help to be the best that they can be, for everybody to reach that level. And I think that's what humanism is about. Atheism just means that I don't believe in anything, or I don't believe in a higher power. There's not really anything else to it. I mean, you could be an atheist and believe in aliens. You could be an atheist and, be a hard-nosed ultra-conservative. And I personally know a couple that are. So just calling yourself an atheist or a humanist doesn't necessarily mean that you're an atheist, because I have also known religious humanists.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but now you were also talking about your podcast. When does that come out, and how can people find that?
I do 2 episodes a month. People can find out more by going to my website, which is theatheistbook.com. Information is there on the book and the film, and also on the podcast. You can sign up on iTunes as well. It's the same name, A Better Life, through iTunes, and I release 2 episodes each month. Okay.
Now, you said you had Cara Santa Maria pretty recently. Just as kind of a teaser, who are some names that you might be having coming up here soon in the next few episodes?
Well, the podcast with Cara is coming out tomorrow, so look out for that one. That one's going to be a lot of fun. I have some other people in the works. I don't want to say who they are yet, just because I'm still working out the final details about when and where. So I don't want to promise anything in case something happens. But, some of the folks I've had so far already, Lawrence Krauss, Matt Dillahunty, we mentioned, Tracy Harris, Sarah Hayter was on, Seth Andrews, Greta Christina, Sean Carroll was the first person I had on, Shelley Siegel, Andrew Seidel from FFRF has been on. So it's been a really great experience to be able to reconnect with people that I met when I did the book and the film, but also talk to people that I've met since doing the book and the film that are just fascinating and interesting. And I wish I'd known when I was doing the book, because I would have put them in the book.
Yeah, it is really neat how you get to after you start doing this for a little bit and you start meeting people and you're like, man, I should have done this, or I should have had them on sooner, or sometimes it seems really hard. I think for podcasting too, that one of the hard things is you want to have things planned out in advance, but at the same time you want to be flexible.
Yeah. Also, because I travel so much, flexibility is really important to me. So, I take my microphone when I travel so I can do podcast recordings on the road. That's the other great thing about, the age we're living in now, with technology being as it is you can do a podcast from your laptop and a microphone, and, you don't need a whole studio setup. And so when I'm on the road, if I'm staying in someone's house or if I'm in a hotel room, I can do a podcast episode, on the fly. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, now if it looks like I'm starting to run short on time here, unfortunately. But if people wanted to find out or find your book, your movie, find your podcast, or maybe want to help support you, what are some ways that they can do that? How can they reach out and contact you?
Awesome. You can go to my website, like I said, which is theatheistbook.com. There you can watch the movie, you can get the DVD, you can get the book. The podcast information is available too. I'm also on Patreon, which helps support the podcast and the tour that I've been on for the past 2 years, taking this tour around the world. Again, I've been to 96 cities on 5 continents. It's pretty amazing the places we've been and taken this film. I'm really proud of that.
Okay.
You can support that on Patreon, patreon.com/theatheistbook for more information on that as well.
Okay. Well, awesome. Again, I want to thank you so much. As a personal note on the movie, I have a rating system as far as how many beers I would give the movie. And I definitely, it's very rare that I do this, but I have to give A Better Life a full 6-pack. I mean, I thought it was an excellent movie. It got the point across really well. The topics that you address in the movie are things that I think a lot of... I think it's a really good movie, not just for atheists or secularists to watch, but maybe also if you needed a way to sit down with family members and maybe explain to them about what it's all about, your movie is one of the things that I would point them to, definitely, as, you know, this is what we're about. And it's not eating babies and, you know, screaming at the top of our lungs that we hate God kind of thing. That this is a more realistic look at it.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And that's actually one of the things I love as well about it, is that I think and I hope that it is something that religious people can get something out of. And the religious people that have contacted me after seeing the film have said just that. They've gotten a lot out of it, and they know a lot more about our side of the argument now, or our side of the aisle, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's a really great experience to have and to do, to help them understand where we're coming from a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree so much, and I definitely want to encourage folks listening to the podcast to go ahead and check out your website, get the book, get the movie, because at least for me, it was something that I really got a lot out of, and I think that it's a very important message that the movie sends.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And thank you for coming on tonight and taking time. I know you're probably pretty tired after traveling all over God's green earth this past month.
It's a lot of running around, but I've been having a good time, and it's really humbling to be able to do all this work for different people. So it's good.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and sign off with this here. So, folks, just remember that believe nothing that you hear, half of what you see, and never have a serious conversation without a 2-drink minimum. Thanks again, Chris, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
I probably should have mentioned this earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out there now. I've changed my podcast hosting site. I've moved from Spreaker over to Podbean. I'm hoping, for the most part, I've changed the RSS feed on Spreaker so that it points to Podbean. So hopefully you guys that have subscribed to me through Spreaker are still going to get the same show. I've also updated it on iTunes. I haven't on Stitcher yet, so if you're on Stitcher, you may want to try to look for the new RSS feed from Podbean instead of over at Spreaker. I wanted to throw that out there for you guys because it was mostly for financial reasons. I don't do live shows anymore very often, and when I do them now, I can probably do them from YouTube and do them a heck of a lot cheaper than I can through what I was getting on Spreaker, because I had a plan that did pretty well for me, and I highly recommend Spreaker if you're starting out. It's just that due to financial reasons, I found that Podbean was a little bit easier for my wife/accountant to stomach and to justify for a monthly fee. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, and hopefully everybody can update their, if it hasn't automatically flipped over, I haven't stopped the show. It's just moved over to this new feed at Podbean. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close it here. So until next week, next week I'm hoping I will be sitting down and talking with Kate from the NWA Equality Center, because this is coming up to This is coming up on Pride Month and Pride Week's coming up, and so I wanted to talk to folks in the LGBT community, and Kate is heading up the NWA Pride Parade and Pride Festival going on in Fayetteville. So hopefully she's going to be on next week. Until then, believe nothing that you hear, half of what you see, and never have a serious conversation without a 2-drink minimum. Good night, guys.
To Anacreon in heaven, where he sat in full glee, a few sons of harmony sent a petition that he their inspirer and patron would be. When this answer aright from the jolly old Grecian, voice, fiddle, and flute no longer be mute, I'll lend you my name and inspire you to boot. And besides, I'll instruct you like me to entwine the myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's vine. And besides, I'll instruct you like me to entwine the myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's vine.
Copyright 2017 Skeptics Brew Pub. All rights reserved.